r/AskReddit. What industry secret do you know that most people don't? The New York Times bestseller list has a lot of people on it who buy massive numbers of their own books. Apparently, there is a symbol that indicates that, while it did make bestseller status, there was a bulk buy, a footnote, if you will, or similar to an asterisk. Worked with a lot of banks and their IT systems. You wouldn't believe how old and fragile they are. It's a wonder it's not all coming crashing down. I'm an academic researcher and I can speak for a huge number in my field when I say, if you want access to our studies and they're behind a paywall, you can email us, and we will send you the study. We are genuinely delighted to share, and if you want further context for the results, or what have you, I'll always try my best to oblige. The only limiters on that last bit is that the original data for the study might have reached the end of our right to keep it, in which case it will have been destroyed. I might have forgotten details or I might have written that paper during a particularly hectic time and my file system might be total shit. Also, a lot of us are on ResearchGate and various social media things, so you can contact us through there. If you can't contact us directly, or we are being slow, one of the other authors on the paper might be contactable. Trained artist here. Most oil paints are made with very toxic substances, as are most paint thinners and mediums. Every single one of my teachers was either very sick, Cancermania's disease, or a bit crazy, eating chalk, licking pellets. All incredible artists I was privileged to learn from. One lesson I learned very well: I wear gloves and sometimes a mask when I paint. I'm a casino manager. It is definitely possible, more likely than you think, to win money in the short term. For example, if you walk in, bet on red/black on roulette, it's reasonably close to 50-50, not quite because of zero. You might do this once, double your money and leave. Congratulations. You will always lose in the long term. Always. Anyone that thinks they have some kind of system is a sucker. A game would not make it into the casino floor if the maths have not been rigorously checked and long-term simulations run to confirm. Exception to this is poker. The casino will always have a rake or time charge to make their money, but there is no reason you cannot consistently win money if you are skilled enough. Worked in online community management and social media for years. Admins can read all of your private messages. Private only means private from the masses, not from administration. We had to be able to read them to check reports of abuse, grooming, illegal activity, etc. I can't tell you how much cringe-worthy shit I had to read through, especially from guys trying to hook up. The reason why the kid fell off the Orlando freefall ride. Any ride with an over-the-shoulder restraint system works by using a proximity sensor to let the computer system know where the restraint is locked. The ride can't move unless all the sensors sense the correct metal at the correct position. On some rides you can move the sensor a few millimeters for proper alignment. Not enough to make a difference. On the freefall ride, someone in management might have wanted to modify a few seats for larger guests. Someone might have told a maintenance worker to move the sensor, which allowed the ride to start with the restraint in a position not in the original design. With this modification, the restraint would be at more of a 45 or so degree angle instead of directly downward. This may or may not have been done with an engineer's approval. This may or may not have been done with a ride vendor's permission. Any procedure like this is strictly prohibited from any standpoint in the amusement rides industry. I can't explain why they thought it was okay. In most situations you wouldn't be able to move the sensor much without detaching the bracket and moving the whole thing to a different location. Again, this wouldn't even be discussed anywhere I have ever worked, but they might have at Icon Park. The details of this mechanical procedure never made the headlines in Florida because all the lawsuits were settled. In the end, someone decided to change the position of that sensor. We will probably never know who. There is probably a maintenance worker who was ordered to do so. I've worked on enough restraints to know that it was not an accident. Personally, I would have refused to do it, and so would almost everyone that works on these things. If your baby goes to a nursery/daycare, chances are those weren't their first steps/words etc that you witnessed. Industry standard is to not tell parents when these things happen, as it makes them feel bad. I've seen kids up and walking about the room for weeks, even months before their parent proudly announced at drop-off that they took their first steps last night. On the Texas House floor, people push the buttons to vote for members who aren't even present that day. This happens multiple times on every single thing they vote for. I worked in politics. There are a lot of people who write to a politician like they're a celebrity. They receive love letters and all kinds of weird stuff. There's also quite a sizable part of their mail that is comprised of people asking for a photo with an autograph. Way more than you think. Some because they're admirers, others because they collect them, and then some other cases you don't really want to know about. I've worked for a female politician. Trust me, you don't wanna know. The dirty little secret within the secret is that the politicians I knew didn't sign anything. They had a machine that did all the signing for them. So technically the autographs were not even real. Some appetizers are the most labor-intense items on the menu to make. For example, dumplings takes one worker about an hour to make 12 to 15 orders. If you want to know where I'm getting at, if a restaurant offers a plethora of appetizers options, then there's a high chance a lot of them are store-bought and resold because there's no feasible way to prepare several orders for each item on the menu. Live audio engineer. Sometimes they're faking it. I've had to make drum sets where the cables went nowhere. I've had to ask a keyboard player if they were having trouble because they were playing, but nothing was coming out of their channel. Don't even get me started on pitch correction, teleprompters, guide tracks, ghost musicians, backing tracks, etc. I wrote an original movie a few years ago. Totally original. Totally my idea. When it finally aired on TV, it said based on a true story. Also, it wasn't Fargo. Car industry. Never buy a car that is completely new on the market. They always come with a ton of bugs that need fixing, and it takes about 2 years of serial production to get rid of most of them. If you must buy a new car, be sure the model has been in the market for at least 2 years. The reason for why we don't fix the problems before start of selling. Cost. Also, don't buy models that were in development during years of crisis. Example, during the 2008 financial crisis we got a huge number of people to fix the numbers in the books. Didn't actually save the company money because they all got a big payout on their way out, so we were understaffed and under immense pressure to reduce cost. The models that came on the market after that time were like serious quality we have never seen before. I'm an unarmed security guard. Every now and then I'll get a comment from someone about how they're glad I'm around in case there's an active shooter or something. Yay, if that happens. We are not doing anything aside from getting ourselves to safety and calling the cops. We are literally told in training that if we try to intervene directly with an active shooter we'll be fired. That store brand products and name brand products made in the same third-party factory aren't the same. People believe that there is no difference to the recipe and that the same stuff is just put into a different box. That it's the same ingredients on the same production line. Each brand asks the factory to make the product at a particular price point. A luxury brand might want the product to cost $4 a unit, but the store brand might want it for $2. The factory will tailor the recipe to the price point, substituting expensive ingredients for cheaper ones, eliminating an ingredient altogether, altering the manufacturing process to require fewer people or equipment, or eliminating intermediate quality control steps. Sure, there might not be a detectable difference between some products, and other products might actually be identical to the point that spending more for a better brand isn't worth it, but a lot of products are noticeably different, even if they are made on the same production line by the same people. All those practical effects that people love in movies are heavily touched by VFX. We fix/enhance/replace everything digitally, and the on-set artists get the credit. My last movie had $350,000 in wig tape fixes. Fury Road, which was applauded for its practical effects, had 2100 VFX shots in it. The first Avatar had around 2500. My slogan for VFX is we make the rest of the movie. When the US overthrew the Taliban, they used a pro-opium rebel group named the Northern Alliance to fight the ground war and then put them in charge of the country. The soy farmers who grew soy, because they were terrified of the very anti-opium Taliban, immediately swapped their crops over to opium poppy, where Afghanistan quickly became over 90% of the world's opium supply, mostly overnight. Initially the US tried burning the opium crops, but that didn't exactly win the hearts and minds of the people, so they resorted to a combination of A. Paying farmers the difference to just grow soy instead, and B. Actually purchasing some of the opium from Afghan farmers for the US pharmaceutical industry, who suddenly had a huge surplus of opium to offload. Oh, did I mention this was coincidentally exactly when the oxycodone epidemic in the US happened, and a bunch of powerful billionaires in the pharmaceutical industry decided to push tons of highly addictive opium pills to basically every home and family in the country? It's a fascinating little detail nobody ever seems to talk about. If you plan to buy a new computer and the options are Windows 10 for cheaper and Windows 11 for a markup, get the Windows 10. The upgrade to 11 is free. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.